All right, so what we're going to do now is learn about checkboxes. Checkboxes, like many other things, have variations to them, and they're relatively easy to make. So let's come into here and give myself a little too much extra space up there, and let's import this guy here, or her, or whatever you want it to be. Alrighty, got this coming on in. And cool. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could set these up here, and I'm not gonna try to crowd too much the screen here, but let's just do a general checkbox here. Hit save. Edge doesn't collapse yet, and we got this. You know, it's pretty basic checkbox there. And if you just want to use it just like that, this kind of grayish looking background here, that's fine. But let's just do some other things, and this is kind of straight out of the documentation, so it's not any smoke and mirrors on my end like as some wizard really just copying from the website here. But let's come up in here actually, and let's go ahead and make a use state here. All right, so one of the properties that we could directly work with here is the checked property. Now, if we come into here, we have checked. We could have this, and if it's checked, it's kind of just permanently checked right there. See, I'm clicking it as much as I can. It's firing off. Nothing special is going on. But if I come into here, and I have checked, but then I also have to have an on change event happen here. Let me come up in here. Let's see, handle, let's just see, let's make it more specific. Checkbox, I'll just say actually toggle. I'll differ a little bit from the documentation they have. So we'll have toggle checkbox, because I think that's a bit more specific. And we'll do set checked. Okay, oh, didn't like that there because I got to throw this in. So we can see here that when we have this in here that we are toggling back and forth this way, which is pretty cool. It's not a bad idea there. But what if we wanted to do something else? So let's go ahead and, you know what, before we get to that point, I don't want to make this kind of the last thing because that'd be kind of rude for a lot of users. But one thing you could do, I think with virtually all the material UI, different kinds of elements, components, whatever you can make, is you could give them a label. Now, like I've shown, I think in the buttons video, when you render this out, you see checkbox here, but behind the scenes, it does a bunch of other stuff. It wraps it before it finally renders it to your web page here. And so what you're going to want to do is do input props. And also, for a good reference here, if you're going to be testing, this is one of the ways you could find your element on the page, is using this input props argument here. So we have an ARIA label. We'll do my first checkbox. Now this isn't a very good label, but then again, it's not going into production, so it doesn't really matter. But typically when you're going to have stuff like this, and say a user needs to click this, say they're ordering something, maybe they're unsubscribing, you're going to want something for people who have some kind of supportive readers for them, or some kind of technology that tells them there's a checkbox here and what is it. So for me, this would be my first checkbox, but this may be, you know, click to unsubscribe. Hopefully I don't misspell this. Click to unsubscribe, right? And so they would know to click that, and then everything would be taken care of for them. So that was a bit long-winded there. So let's go and let's make another checkbox. I'll pop this down here. And so instead what we're going to do here, rather than use the state, is we're going to do default checked, and let's do a remove the on change here. You could also have default oh wait, a default check, that's what it said. I was going to change the color because I like to differentiate here. So we have secondary up here. Actually, let's change this to primary. Because I think the actual, according to at least this, how I look at it, is that the default is actually a primary color, which is a little interesting there, but whatever. I'm going to name this second checkbox thing already. So yeah, you know, nothing too terribly interesting here. We could have default checked. We could also have disabled. So this is default checked, but it's disabled. Maybe you have some kind of logic where they have a choice, and given the page they're on, they can't change it at this point, but you want to show them that they've made this previous decision, whatever it may be there. And so moving on down here, I'm just going to keep these two going on. But say we want to do default check, but there's this interesting one. I don't know what I would use it for, but you could do indeterminate. And so you could click it on and off, and I'm not sure what I would use indeterminate for, or if I would have some kind of state type of thing, toggling it between indeterminate and then, you know, whether something is default, not default checked, but checked in general. I'm not quite sure, but these are the options that it gives you here. And the last thing I kind of want to show is that not only could you make things indeterminate, you could have a default checked, but you could also make things larger or bigger. So you could do small, which you can't really tell here, but you could see that this truly is smaller compared to this checkbox on the left. Remember, medium is the default size here. So let's jump to large. And we see that this is actually roughly about the same size there, so that's kind of interesting. Try with medium there. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of it when you're dealing with sizes there, but you can change them from small. Like it looks like you only have 2 to toggle from. And yeah, that's pretty much the intro right here to the checkboxes. Just make sure you have your input props. You give it a label. If you wanted to come in here and do something like role, you could do that as well if you're using a React testing library and you want to, you know, search for the role or whatever it may be to test or toggle this yourself. But yeah, that's pretty much the introduction to checkboxes.